The Monday morning sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Morrison Tech headquarters, casting long shadows across the open-plan office. Emma Clark sat at her desk on the 23rd floor, nursing her third coffee of the morning and trying to ignore the persistent flutter in her stomach. She'd been having the dream again, the same dream that had haunted her for the past 3 months, ever since she'd started working as a senior marketing analyst at Morrison Tech. In the dream, her boss, Nathan Morrison, wasn't her boss at all. He was just a man, a devastatingly attractive man with dark hair that fell just slightly too long over his collar, steel blue eyes that seemed to see right through every professional wall she'd built, and a jawline that could have been carved from marble. In the dream, they weren't in the sterile conference rooms of Morrison Tech. They were somewhere warm, somewhere private, somewhere that professionalism didn't matter, and company policies about fraternization were just words on a page nobody read. Emma shook her head, trying to dislodge the images that clung to her consciousness like morning fog. This was ridiculous. She was 28 years old, a professional with 2 degrees, and a promising career trajectory. She did not develop crushes on her bosses like some teenager with a fantasy about the unattainable. Except Nathan Morrison was unattainable in every sense of the word. He was 35, the youngest CEO in the tech industry, a self-made billionaire who'd built Morrison Tech from a garage startup to a global powerhouse in less than a decade. He was also infuriatingly attractive, impossibly intelligent, and completely, utterly, devastatingly out of her league. "Emma, you look like you need more than coffee." The voice belonged to Maya Chen, Emma's closest friend at the office, and the only person who knew about her completely inappropriate feelings for their CEO. Maya slid into the chair beside Emma's desk, her perfectly styled black hair swinging as she leaned in conspiratorially. "Another dream?" Emma groaned and buried her face in her hands. "It's getting worse. Last night we were in his office after everyone had gone home, and he pushed me against the windows overlooking the city, and his hands were in my hair, and—" She stopped abruptly, her cheeks flaming. "I need therapy. Or a lobotomy. Maybe both." Maya laughed, the sound bright and completely unsympathetic. "What you need is to actually talk to the man. You've been working here for 3 months, and the longest conversation you've had with him is about quarterly projections. How do you expect anything to happen if you can't even maintain eye contact for more than 5 seconds? "Nothing is supposed to happen," Emma hissed, glancing around to make sure no one was listening. "He's my boss. There are policies, rules, very clear, very explicit rules about relationships between superiors and subordinates. Also, he probably doesn't even know I exist beyond being the person who makes his marketing reports look pretty." "He knows you exist," Maya said, her voice dropping to a whisper. "I've seen the way he looks at you when you're presenting in meetings, like he's actually interested in what you're saying, not just waiting for his turn to talk." Emma wanted to believe her, but hope was a dangerous thing in the corporate world. She'd seen what happened to people who mixed business with pleasure. They ended up transferred to different departments, or worse, looking for new jobs while nursing broken hearts and damaged reputations. Emma had worked too hard to get where she was. She wasn't about to throw it away for a fantasy that would never become reality. Her phone buzzed on the desk, and Emma glanced down at the screen. A message from her best friend from college, Sophie, who now lived across the country and had a terrible habit of texting at inappropriate times. The message preview showed, "So, did you finally do something about your boss situation, or are you still just dreaming about him?" Emma smiled despite herself and picked up her phone to type a response. She opened the messaging app, her fingers moving quickly across the screen. "Still just dreaming, unfortunately. Had another one last night. Very detailed, very inappropriate. Very much not happening in real life because I value my career and my sanity." She hesitated, then added more detail, the kind of detail she would only share with Sophie, who knew everything about her and judged nothing. Okay, but seriously, this dream was intense. We were in his office late at night, and he told me he'd been watching me for months, thinking about me, wanting me. He pushed me against his desk, his hands everywhere, his mouth on my neck, and I could feel how much he wanted me through his suit pants. Then he picked me up, and I wrapped my legs around him, and he carried me to the windows. He pressed me against the glass, and I could see the whole city below us, while he kissed me, like I was the only thing in the world that mattered. His hand slid under my skirt, and Emma stopped typing, her face burning. Even for Sophie, this was a lot of detail. But it felt good to get it out, to share the fantasy that had been consuming her thoughts for weeks. She added one final line. Anyway, that's my morning. How's your boring, drama-free life going? She hit send, then immediately set her phone face down on the desk and turned back to her computer, trying to focus on the marketing analysis that was due by noon. The numbers swam before her eyes, revenue projections and demographic breakdowns blurring together into meaningless data. All she could think about was the dream, the feeling of Nathan's hands on her skin, the weight of his body against hers, the way he'd looked at her like she was something precious and desired. 5 minutes later, Emma's phone exploded with notifications. Not one notification. Not two. Dozens. Her phone buzzed so persistently that it vibrated off the desk and onto the floor. Emma stared at it, her heart suddenly pounding. Maya looked over, her eyebrows raised. Popular this morning? Emma bent to retrieve her phone, and when she saw the screen, the blood drained from her face. Message after message, all from Morrison Tech's internal communication system. Confused, she unlocked the phone and opened the app. What she saw made her heart stop completely. There, in the company-wide channel, the channel that every single employee at Morrison Tech had access to, the channel that was supposed to be used only for important company announcements and emergency communications, was her message. The entire message. Every explicit, inappropriate, career-ending word of it. But instead of being sent to Sophie, it had been sent to everyone. The CEO, the CFO, the entire executive team, the HR department, her colleagues, the interns, even the janitorial staff. Emma couldn't breathe. Her vision tunneled, dark spots dancing at the edges. This wasn't happening. This couldn't be happening. She must still be dreaming. Any moment now, she would wake up in her apartment, relieved and embarrassed, but safe in the knowledge that it was all just her subconscious playing tricks on her. But the messages kept coming. Shocked emojis, laughing faces, comments ranging from supportive to mortified to absolutely delighted at the drama. Someone from accounting had written, "Well, that's one way to start a Monday." Someone from the legal department had written, "HR is going to have a field day with this one." And then, the message that made Emma's stomach drop through the floor. "Emma Clark, please report to the CEO's office immediately." The message was from Nathan Morrison himself. Maya grabbed Emma's arm, her face pale. "Oh my God! Emma, what did you do?" "I don't know," Emma whispered, her voice barely audible. "I thought I was texting Sophie. The company chat must have been open and She couldn't finish the sentence. Her career was over. Everything she'd worked for, every late night and early morning, every presentation she'd perfected, and every report she'd polished, all of it was about to go up in flames because she'd sent a graphic sexual fantasy about her boss to the entire company. "You have to go," Maya said gently. "You can't avoid this. Whatever happens, you face it head on. Maybe it won't be as bad as you think." Emma looked at her friend. seeing the lie in her eyes. They both knew exactly how bad this was. There was no coming back from this. No way to spin it or explain it away. She'd sent explicit content about her boss through company channels. She'd violated every professional boundary that existed. She would be lucky if she was only fired. She might face legal action, a lawsuit. Her name would be associated with this disaster forever. On shaking legs, Emma stood. The entire office was staring at her now, some people trying to hide it, others openly gawking. She could hear whispers following her as she walked toward the elevator, each step feeling like she was walking toward her own execution. The elevator ride to the 35th floor, where Nathan's office occupied the entire level, felt both too long and too short. Emma's reflection in the polished steel doors showed a woman who looked nothing like the confident professional she'd been an hour ago. Her face was ashen, her eyes too wide, her hands trembling visibly. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime that sounded like a death knell. Nathan's executive assistant, a stern woman named Patricia, who had worked for the Morrison family for 20 years, looked up from her desk. Her expression was unreadable, which somehow made everything worse. "He's expecting you. Go straight in." Emma's legs barely carried her across the plush carpet to the massive oak doors of Nathan's office. She raised her hand to knock, but before her knuckles could connect with the wood, his voice called out, "Come in, Emma." She pushed open the door and stepped into an office that had featured prominently in her dreams. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city, the same view she'd imagined pressed against in her fantasy. Nathan's desk was a sleek expanse of dark wood and glass, impeccably organized. Built-in bookshelves lined one wall, filled with leather-bound volumes and tech industry awards. And behind the desk, sitting in a high-backed leather chair, with his fingers steepled beneath his chin, was Nathan Morrison himself. He looked exactly as he always did. Immaculate charcoal suit that probably cost more than Emma's monthly rent. White shirt, open at the collar. No tie. Dark hair perfectly styled, but with that one piece that always seemed to fall forward, making him look slightly less intimidating and infinitely more attractive. And those eyes, those impossible steel blue eyes, were fixed directly on her with an expression she couldn't read. "Close the door," Nathan said, his voice calm and measured. Emma obeyed, her hand shaking so badly she nearly missed the handle. When the door clicked shut, sealing them in together, the silence that filled the office was suffocating. "Sit," Nathan said, gesturing to one of the chairs across from his desk. Emma sat, perching on the edge of the seat like she might need to run at any moment. Her heart was pounding so hard she was sure he could hear it. Nathan was quiet for a long moment, his eyes never leaving her face. Emma wanted to say something, to apologize, to beg for mercy, but her throat had closed up completely. Finally, Nathan spoke, and his first words were the last thing Emma expected to hear. "I had no idea you felt that way about me." Emma's brain short-circuited. Of all the things she'd expected him to say, of all the ways she'd imagined this conversation going, this wasn't one of them. She'd expected anger, disappointment, a cold, professional dismissal followed by security escorting her from the building with her belongings in a cardboard box. She had not expected Nathan Morrison to sound almost curious. Emma's voice cracked. She swallowed hard and tried again. "Mr. Morrison, I am so incredibly sorry. I don't know what happened. I thought I was texting my friend, and somehow the message went to the company channel instead, and I would never intentionally. I didn't mean to." She was babbling, words tumbling over each other in her desperation to explain the inexplicable. Nathan held up one hand, and Emma's mouth snapped shut. "I read the message, Emma, obviously. along with approximately 400 other people in this company. He paused, and something flickered in his expression. It was quite detailed. Emma wanted to die, actually cease to exist. Maybe if she wished hard enough, the universe would take pity on her and open a hole in the floor that she could fall through, preferably one that led directly to another dimension where this conversation wasn't happening. "I know this is a terminable offense," Emma said, forcing herself to meet his eyes, even though every instinct screamed at her to look away. "I violated company policy. I created a hostile work environment. I understand if you need to fire me. I'll go quietly. I won't fight it. I need you to know that I never meant for anyone to see that. It was private. It was just a stupid fantasy that I should have kept to myself, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." Nathan leaned back in his chair, still watching her with that unreadable expression. "You think I called you up here to fire you? Aren't you?" Emma's voice was barely a whisper. "No." The single word hung in the air between them. Nathan stood, and Emma's breath caught as he moved around the desk, his movements fluid and controlled. He leaned against the front of the desk, arms crossed over his chest, close enough now that Emma could smell his cologne. The same cologne from her dreams, woodsy and expensive and utterly intoxicating. "I called you up here because we need to address what happened, but firing you isn't on the table." Emma blinked, confused. "It's not?" "Emma, you're one of the most talented analysts this company has. Your work is exceptional. Your insights have directly contributed to 3 of our most successful campaigns this quarter. One embarrassing mistake, however public, doesn't erase that." Nathan's voice was calm, almost gentle. "What it does mean is that we need to have a conversation about boundaries and about honesty." "Honesty?" Emma repeated, not understanding. Nathan was quiet for a moment, his eyes searching her face. When he spoke again, his voice was lower, more personal. "You wrote that you've been having these dreams for months, that you think about me, that you want me." He paused, and Emma saw his jaw tighten almost imperceptibly. "Is that true? Or was it just fiction? Something you made up for your friend?" Emma's heart was racing again, but for an entirely different reason now. There was something in Nathan's tone, something in the way he was looking at her, that made her wonder if maybe, possibly, this conversation wasn't going where she'd thought it was going. "It's true," she admitted, her voice barely audible. "I've been having the dreams, thinking about you, trying not to think about you, failing spectacularly at not thinking about you." Nathan's expression shifted, something dark and intense flickering in his eyes. "Do you have any idea how difficult it's been to maintain professional distance from you? To pretend I don't notice every time you walk into a room? To sit through your presentations and focus on the data instead of the way your mouth moves when you're passionate about an idea?" Emma stared at him, certain she'd misheard. "What?" "I noticed you the day you walked in for your interview," Nathan continued, his voice rough now, stripped of its usual professional polish. "You wore a gray suit and heels that made your legs look incredible, and you sat across from me in this very office and told me exactly why Morrison Tech's marketing strategy was outdated and what you would do to fix it. You were confident and brilliant and completely unaware of how beautiful you are. And I knew, right then, that hiring you would be a mistake." "Then why did you?" Emma asked, her mind reeling. "Because I'm apparently a masochist who enjoys torturing himself." Nathan's mouth quirked in something that wasn't quite a smile. "I thought I could keep it professional. I thought I could ignore the attraction. I thought if I kept my distance, stayed cold, treated you like just another employee, these feelings would fade." He shook his head. "They didn't. They got worse. Every presentation you gave, every report you submitted, every time I passed your desk and smelled your perfume, it got harder to pretend I didn't want you. Emma couldn't breathe. This wasn't happening. This couldn't be happening. Nathan Morrison, her boss, the man she'd convinced herself was completely unattainable, was telling her he wanted her to. But you never said anything, never gave any indication. Because I'm your boss, Nathan interrupted, his voice sharp now. Because there are rules, policies, because acting on an attraction to a subordinate would be an abuse of power, and I refuse to be that man. Because even though I've spent 3 months imagining what it would be like to kiss you, to touch you, to have you the way you described in that message, I couldn't cross that line. He paused, his eyes locked on hers. But you already crossed it for both of us. Emma's pulse was thundering in, her ears. What are you saying? Nathan pushed off from the desk and moved closer, close enough that Emma had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. I'm saying that the secret is out. The entire company now knows you have feelings for me. HR is already drafting incident reports. There will be meetings, discussions about appropriate workplace conduct, possibly mandated training sessions. His voice dropped lower, intimate. The damage is done, Emma. The professional boundary we've both been so careful to maintain has already been shattered. So the question becomes, what do we do now? Emma's mouth had gone completely dry. She was acutely aware of how close Nathan was standing, how she could see the flecks of darker blue in his eyes, how his chest rose and fell with each controlled breath. What do you want to do? She managed to ask, her voice trembling. Nathan's hand came up slowly, giving her time to move away if she wanted to. His fingers brushed her jaw, gentle and questioning, and Emma's breath hitched. I want to stop pretending, he said quietly. I want to stop acting like I don't think about you constantly. I want to stop leaving rooms when you enter them because I don't trust myself to be near you. I want... He stopped, his thumb tracing along her lower lip with aching slowness. I want everything you described in that message and more. But only if that's what you want too. And only if we do this the right way. The right way? Emma could barely form words. Her entire body was alight with sensation from that single touch. Transparency, honesty, full disclosure to HR. Nathan's hand dropped from her face, and Emma almost whimpered at the loss. If we're going to do this, we do it properly. We document everything. We make sure there's no question of coercion or abuse of power. We probably need to restructure reporting lines, so you're not directly under my supervision. He paused, a slight smile playing at his lips. Metaphorically speaking. Despite everything, Emma felt a shocked laugh bubble up in her throat. Did you just... I did, Nathan confirmed, his smile widening. I'm not always cold and professional, Emma. You just haven't seen the other sides of me yet. His expression grew serious again. But I need to know this is what you want. Not just in fantasy, not just in dreams. In reality, with all the complications that come with it. Because once we cross this line, there's no going back. Everyone will know. There will be talk, judgment. Some people will assume you slept your way to success, regardless of how talented you actually are. It won't be easy. Emma stood, her legs somehow steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her system. She was nearly eye level with Nathan in her heels, close enough to feel the heat radiating from his body. I've spent 3 months trying to convince myself these feelings would go away, that I was being ridiculous and unprofessional and foolish, that you were unattainable and I needed to focus on my career and forget about impossible fantasies. She took a breath, gathering her courage. But they didn't go away. And after today, After sending that message to the entire company and facing the most humiliating moment of my professional life, I realized something. I'm already dealing with the complications. I've already faced the consequences. So yes, Nathan, this is what I want. You are what I want. Reality, complications, and all. For a moment, Nathan just looked at her, his eyes searching her face like he was memorizing every detail. Then he moved, closing the small distance between them, and Emma's back hit the edge of his desk. His hands came up to frame her face, gentle despite the intensity in his eyes, and he leaned in slowly, giving her every opportunity to change her mind. "Last chance to run," he murmured, his lips inches from hers. "I'm not running," Emma whispered back. Nathan kissed her, and Emma's fantasy world collided spectacularly with reality. His lips were soft but insistent, moving against hers with a barely restrained hunger that made her knees weak. Emma's hands fisted in his suit jacket, pulling him closer, and Nathan made a low sound in his throat that sent heat pooling in her stomach. His tongue traced the seam of her lips, requesting entry, and Emma opened for him, gasping as the kiss deepened into something consuming. Nothing in her dreams had prepared her for this, for the real weight of his body pressing against hers, for the real taste of him, mint and coffee, and something uniquely Nathan, for the real feeling of his hands sliding from her face to her waist, pulling her against him until there was no space left between them. Emma could feel his heart pounding against her chest, as rapid as her own, could feel the tension in his muscles as he held himself back from taking more than she was offering. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Nathan rested his forehead against hers. He seemed at a loss for words, which Emma found oddly endearing. "Better than the dream," Emma finished, her voice shaky. "Definitely better than the dream." Nathan laughed, the sound low and rich and completely unguarded. "We should stop. We need to go to HR, file the appropriate paperwork, make this official before we—" He stopped, his eyes darkening as they dropped to her lips. "Before I do things that are definitely not appropriate for the office." Emma knew he was right. They needed to do this properly, by the book, to protect both of them. But she'd spent 3 months denying herself what she wanted, and now that she'd had a taste of it, stopping felt impossible. "What if we went to HR right now, filed whatever paperwork needed to be filed, made everything official and above board?" She paused, her heart racing, "And then came back here?" Nathan's grip on her waist tightened. "Emma, I know it's crazy," Emma said quickly. "I know we should take this slow, be sensible, not rush into anything. But I've been sensible my entire life, Nathan. I've followed every rule, checked every box, done everything I was supposed to do. And then this morning, I accidentally sent my deepest fantasy to 400 people, and my career should be in shambles. But instead, I'm standing here with you, and you're telling me you want me to." She met his eyes, letting him see the want in hers. "I don't want to be sensible anymore. Not about this. Not about you." Nathan was quiet for a long moment, conflict clear in his expression. Then he made a decision. He stepped back, putting distance between them, and Emma felt the loss like a physical ache. But when he spoke, his voice was firm with resolve. "Come with me. We're going to HR right now. We're going to do this right." He held out his hand to her. "And then, Emma Clark, I'm going to take you to dinner. A real dinner. At a real restaurant. Where I can get to know you outside of spreadsheets and presentations. Where we can talk like two people who are interested in each other, not like boss and employee. And if, after that, you still want this, want me, then we'll see where the night takes us." Emma took his hand, feeling the calluses on his palm despite his executive position, and let him lead her toward the door. But before they reached it, Nathan paused, turning back to her with an expression that was part amused, part concerned. "You realize the moment we step out of this office, we're going to face the entire company. Everyone who read that message. They're all going to be watching us, talking about us, making assumptions." Emma squared her shoulders, drawing on reserves of courage she hadn't known she possessed. "Let them watch. Let them talk. They've already read the most intimate details of my fantasy life. What's left to hide?" Nathan's smile was genuine now, transforming his usually stern features into something breathtaking. "You're remarkable, you know that?" He squeezed her hand gently. "Let's go face the music." They opened the office door together, and Patricia looked up from her desk, her usually impassive face showing something that might have been surprise or approval or both. "Mr. Morrison, your 10 o'clock meeting has been waiting in the—" She stopped as she registered their joined hands. Her eyebrows rose fractionally. "Should I cancel your morning appointments?" "Yes," Nathan said without hesitation. "Clear my schedule for the rest of the day. And Patricia—" He paused. "Thank you. For everything." The older woman's expression softened. "It's about time, sir," she said quietly, then returned to her computer as if nothing unusual had happened. The elevator ride down was silent, but Emma could feel the energy crackling between them, a mixture of anticipation and nervousness and possibility. When the doors opened on the 23rd floor, where HR was located, Emma felt her courage waver, slightly. This was really happening. They were really about to make this official, to put in writing what had been unspoken and forbidden just hours ago. The HR department at Morrison Tech occupied a suite of offices designed to be welcoming and non-threatening, all soft colors and comfortable furniture. The director of HR, a sharp-eyed woman named Margaret Foster, who'd been with the company since its early days, looked up as Nathan and Emma entered. Her expression shifted from polite curiosity to knowing understanding in the space of a heartbeat. "Mr. Morrison. Ms. Clark." Margaret's voice was neutral, professional. "I was expecting to hear from one or both of you today." Her eyes flicked to their still joined hands. "Please, sit down. We have some things to discuss." For the next 45 minutes, Emma lived through what could only be described as the most professionally humiliating and simultaneously liberating experience of her life. Margaret walked them through company policy regarding workplace relationships, the necessary disclosures, the documentation required to ensure everything was consensual and above board. She asked questions that made Emma's face burn, but that she answered honestly, with Nathan's hand solid and reassuring in hers. "The message this morning was sent in error," Emma explained for the third time. "It was meant for a friend outside the company. It was private, never intended to be seen by anyone at Morrison Tech." "But the content of the message was accurate?" Margaret asked, her pen poised over her notepad. "These feelings you expressed, they're genuine." Emma nodded, refusing to look away, even though every instinct screamed at her to hide. "Yes. They're genuine. I've been attracted to Mr. Morrison since I started working here. I've never acted on those feelings. I've maintained complete professionalism. This morning was an accident, a horrible, mortifying accident." "And you, Mr. Morrison?" Margaret turned her attention to Nathan. "What is your position on this situation?" Nathan's thumb stroked across Emma's knuckles, a small gesture of support. "I reciprocate Ms. Clark's feelings. I have for some time. I've also maintained appropriate professional boundaries, understanding my position of authority and the potential for abuse of power. But given that the situation is now public knowledge, and given that both parties are interested in pursuing a relationship, I believe the best course of action is full transparency and restructuring to eliminate the power dynamic." Margaret made notes, her expression thoughtful. Ms. Clark would need to be reassigned. She can't report directly to you if you're in a romantic relationship. I recommend transferring her to the creative department under Director Peterson. Her skill set would be valuable there, and it removes the direct supervisory relationship. She looked up, meeting Emma's eyes. Would that be acceptable to you, Ms. Clark? Emma felt a flutter of anxiety. She'd worked hard to get where she was, had built relationships on her current team. But she also knew Margaret was right. This was the only way to make it work, without ethical concerns. Yes, she said firmly. That's acceptable. Good. Margaret made more notes, then looked between them seriously. I need to be clear about something. This documentation protects the company and both of you. But it doesn't protect you from gossip. Doesn't stop people from making assumptions or judgments. Some of your colleagues will assume the relationship started before today, regardless of what you say. Some will assume Ms. Clark is receiving preferential treatment. There will be comments, speculation, potentially even resentment. She paused. Are you both prepared for that? Nathan and Emma exchanged a look, and Emma saw the same determination in his eyes that she felt in her chest. They answered simultaneously. Yes. Margaret's stern expression softened into something almost like a smile. Then I'll process the paperwork immediately. The transfer will be effective tomorrow. As for the message this morning, I'll be sending a company-wide communication reminding everyone of our policies regarding harassment, privacy, and appropriate workplace conduct. What happened was an accident, but it sparked a teachable moment about digital communication and professional boundaries. She stood, signaling the meeting was over. Mr. Morrison, Ms. Clark, I wish you both the best. And please, try to keep the rest of your relationship off the company communication channels. Emma felt her face flame red, but Nathan just laughed, the sound free and unguarded. I think we can manage that. They left the HR office hand in hand, and as they walked through the building, Emma felt eyes following them. Whispers started in their wake. Phones appeared to capture the moment. By the time they reached the lobby, Emma was certain that every single person in Morrison Tech knew that their CEO and the woman who'd sent that infamous message were now officially together. So, Nathan said as they stepped out into the afternoon sunshine, we've done the responsible thing. We've filed the paperwork, made it official, ensured everything is ethical, and above board. He turned to face her, his eyes dancing with something that looked like mischief. Now, Emma Clark, would you like to have lunch with me? As two people who are free to explore whatever this is between them, without policies and protocols standing in the way. Emma felt a smile break across her face, genuine and unreserved. I would love to have lunch with you. Then a thought occurred to her, and she bit her lip. But Nathan, it's only noon. Don't you have work? Meetings and calls and CEO things that can't just be canceled. Nathan pulled out his phone and typed something quickly. A moment later, he slipped it back into his pocket and gave her a look that made her stomach flip. I just promoted my COO to handle operations for the rest of the day. One of the benefits of being CEO is occasionally being able to delegate when something more important comes up. He stepped closer, his voice dropping to that low, intimate tone that made Emma's skin tingle. And Emma, getting to know you, really know you, outside of conference rooms and quarterly reports, that's definitely more important. They walked to Nathan's car, a sleek black Tesla that whispered of wealth without being ostentatious. Nathan opened the passenger door for her, a gesture that felt both old-fashioned and perfect, and Emma slid into leather seats that probably cost more than her entire car. As Nathan pulled into traffic, Emma found herself studying his profile, the strong line of his jaw, the way his hands gripped the steering wheel with easy confidence. You're staring, Nathan said, amusement coloring his voice. I'm allowed to now, Emma replied, surprised by her own boldness. No more pretending I don't notice you. No more looking away when you catch me watching you in meetings. Nathan glanced over at her, something heated flashing in his eyes. Good. Because I plan to stare quite a bit, too. He returned his attention to the road, but his hand found hers across the console, threading their fingers together. Tell me something about yourself that isn't in your personnel file. Something real. Emma thought for a moment. I wanted to be a writer when I was younger. Fiction, mostly. Romance novels, actually. She felt her cheeks warm. I guess that explains the, detailed nature of that message. Occupational hazard of having an overactive imagination. Nathan's laugh was warm and genuine. So, I have your unfulfilled writing ambitions to thank for the most detailed fantasy anyone has ever had about me? He squeezed her hand. I'll have to send a thank you note to whatever prevented you from pursuing that career. Student loans, Emma said dryly. Student loans prevented me from pursuing that career. Turns out marketing analytics pays significantly better than aspiring novelist. Fair enough. Nathan pulled into the parking lot of a small Italian restaurant tucked away on a quiet street, the kind of place that didn't look like much from the outside, but promised authenticity within. But maybe you could write on the side, pursue both passions? Maybe, Emma said softly, touched that he'd remembered that detail, that he'd called writing a passion and not just a hobby. What about you? What's something real about Nathan Morrison that isn't in Forbes articles or business profiles? Nathan came around to open her door, offering his hand to help her out. I hate being CEO sometimes, he admitted quietly. I love building things, creating new technology, solving problems. But the administrative side, the politics, the endless meetings about meetings. I'd rather be in the lab with the developers, actually making something. He held the restaurant door open for her. But someone has to run the business side, and my father trusted me to do it right. So I do. They were seated at a corner table, private and intimate, with soft lighting and the smell of fresh bread and garlic filling the air. Emma watched Nathan across the table, seeing him in a completely new light. Not the cold, distant CEO she'd observed from afar, but a man with doubts and obligations and dreams he'd set aside for duty. Your father, Emma said carefully. The message mentioned him earlier, when we were talking to Margaret. Is he the reason you're so careful about rules and policies? Nathan's expression shuddered briefly, then opened again, like he'd made a conscious decision to be honest. My father built Morrison Tech from nothing. He was brilliant, driven, absolutely ruthless in business. He was also completely unethical in his personal life. Affairs with subordinates, using his position to coerce relationships, destroying careers when those relationships ended badly. Nathan's jaw tightened. I watched the damage he caused, the lives he ruined, the women who had to choose between their dignity and their livelihoods. When I took over, I swore I would never be like him, that I would never use my position that way, that every relationship, every interaction, would be above reproach. Emma reached across the table, covering his hand with hers. That's why you kept your distance, why you were so cold. I was terrified, Nathan admitted. Terrified that if I let myself get close to you, I'd cross lines I'd sworn never to cross, that I'd become the man I despised. He turned his hand over, palm up, and laced their fingers together. But you were right earlier, about the damage already being done. The secret's out. Everyone knows how we feel. And I realized that by trying so hard not to be my father, I was denying myself the possibility of something real, something honest, something that could actually be good if we do it right. The waiter appeared, and they ordered without really looking at the menu, both too focused on each other to care much about food. When they were alone again, Emma asked the question that had been building in her mind since they'd left the office. What happens now? After lunch, after we've made this official, after the gossip dies down. What does this look like? Nathan was quiet for a moment, considering. Honestly, I don't know. I've never done this before. Pursued someone openly, without hiding or pretending or maintaining distance. It's terrifying and exhilarating and completely uncharted territory. He met her eyes, his gaze steady and sincere. But I know what I want. I want to take you to dinner. Real dates where we dress up and talk for hours. I want to learn everything about you. Your favorite books and movies, and the songs that make you cry. I want to wake up next to you and see you without makeup, and find out if you're grumpy in the mornings. I want all of it, Emma. The boring daily stuff and the exciting adventures and everything in between. Emma's heart was pounding. That's a lot for a first lunch date. Too much? Nathan asked, and for the first time, Emma heard uncertainty in his voice. No, Emma said quickly. Not too much. Perfect, actually. Because I want all of that, too. Their food arrived, steam rising from plates of handmade pasta and rich sauces, but Emma barely tasted it. She was too focused on Nathan, on the way his eyes crinkled when he smiled, on the sound of his laugh when she told him about her disastrous first week at Morrison Tech, when she'd accidentally sent a presentation to the wrong client and had to spend 3 hours doing damage control. They talked about everything and nothing, the conversation flowing easily now that the professional barriers were gone. So, the dream from last night, Nathan said, his voice casual, but his eyes heated. The one you described in such vivid detail. Was it accurate? Is that really what you want? Emma nearly choked on her wine. Are you seriously asking me about my sex dreams over pasta? I'm seriously asking if the woman I'm on a date with is actually as adventurous as her subconscious suggests, Nathan replied, completely unrepentant. Because that message, Emma, was incredibly detailed, incredibly specific, and incredibly arousing. Emma felt heat flood her face and other places. You're trying to make me combust, aren't you? Maybe a little, Nathan admitted. But I'm also trying to understand you. Trying to figure out if the real Emma matches the Emma from the dreams, or if those were just fantasies you'd never actually want to experience. Emma took a long sip of wine, gathering her courage. If they were doing this, really doing this, then honesty was required. The dreams are exaggerated, she admitted. But the core feelings, the desires, those are real. I do want. She stopped, struggling with how explicit to be in a public restaurant. You want me? Nathan finished for her, his voice dropping to that low, intimate register that made her shiver. You want me to touch you, kiss you, take you to bed, and find out exactly what makes you come undone. Nathan? Emma breathed, her body responding to his words with embarrassing intensity. We're in public. I know, his smile was wicked. But I like watching you blush. I like knowing I can affect you this way. I like seeing the professional, composed Emma Clark flustered and wanting. He leaned forward, his eyes locked on hers. And I really like knowing that tonight, when I take you home, I'm going to find out if reality is as good as your dreams. Emma's pulse was racing. You're very sure of yourself. No, Nathan said honestly. I'm completely terrified. But I'm also more certain about this, about us, than I've been about anything in years. So, yes, Emma, I'm taking you home tonight. To my place, where we can be completely alone, where I can spend hours learning every inch of you, where I can make you feel everything you've been dreaming about and more. He paused, Unless you want to wait? Unless you think we're moving too fast? Emma considered. They were moving fast. They'd gone from boss and employee to officially dating to planning to sleep together, all in the span of a few hours. It was reckless and impulsive, and completely unlike her usual careful approach to life. But she'd spent 3 months being careful, 3 months denying what she wanted, 3 months playing it safe. And where had that gotten her? To an accidental company-wide confession and the most humiliating moment of her professional life. "I don't want to wait," Emma said firmly. "I don't want to be careful or sensible or worried about moving too fast. I want you, Nathan. Tonight. Now. As soon as we finish this meal, and you can get us somewhere private." Nathan's eyes darkened with want so intense it stole Emma's breath. "Check, please," he called to the waiter, his voice rough. The drive to Nathan's penthouse was charged with sexual tension, so thick Emma could barely breathe. Nathan's hand rested on her thigh, his thumb tracing absent patterns that were driving her slowly insane. Every traffic light felt like an eternity. Every turn brought them closer, to the moment Emma had been fantasizing about for months, and now that it was actually happening, she felt nervous and excited, and desperate all at once. Nathan's building was exactly what Emma expected. Luxury personified, with a doorman who nodded respectfully, and an elevator that required a key card to access the penthouse level. As the elevator climbed, Nathan pulled Emma against him, his mouth finding hers in a kiss that was nothing like the controlled one in his office. This was hungry, demanding, a preview of what was to come. Emma's hands fisted in his hair, pulling him closer, and Nathan groaned against her mouth, the sound sending heat pooling between her thighs. The elevator doors opened directly into Nathan's penthouse, and Emma had a vague impression of floor-to-ceiling windows, modern furniture, and city lights before Nathan was kissing her again, walking her backward through the space. They left a trail of discarded items: his suit jacket, her blazer, his tie, her heels. By the time they reached what Emma assumed was his bedroom, they were both breathing hard, hands roaming, desperation building. Nathan pulled back, his chest heaving, his hair disheveled from Emma's fingers. "Last chance to change your mind," he said, his voice strained with the effort of holding back. "Once we cross this line, Emma, everything changes. Are you sure this is what you want?" Emma answered by reaching for the buttons of her blouse, slowly undoing them one by one while maintaining eye contact. Nathan watched, transfixed, as she revealed the lace bra beneath, as she let the blouse slide from her shoulders to pool on the floor. "I've never been more sure of anything," she said softly. Nathan's control snapped. He closed the distance between them, his mouth crashing down on hers, his hands everywhere at once. Emma gasped as he lifted her, her legs wrapping around his waist automatically, and then they were falling onto his bed, soft sheets beneath her back, and Nathan's solid weight above her. His mouth moved from her lips to her jaw to her neck, finding the sensitive spot that made her arch against him. "Tell me what you want," Nathan murmured against her skin. "Tell me how to make this good for you." Emma's brain was foggy with desire, but she managed to form words. "Everything. I want everything." Nathan's hands were gentle as they explored her body, learning her curves and responses with attentive care. He took his time, despite Emma's impatience, mapping every inch of exposed skin with his fingers and mouth. When he finally unclasped her bra and took her breast in his mouth, Emma cried out, her hands clutching at his shoulders. The reality was so much more intense than any dream could have been. "You're beautiful," Nathan breathed, his eyes roaming over her with undisguised appreciation. "More beautiful than I imagined." His hand slid to the waistband of her skirt, pausing. "May I?" Emma nodded, beyond words now, and helped him remove the last barriers between them. When she was finally bare beneath him, vulnerable and exposed, she expected to feel self-conscious. Instead, she felt powerful, desired, wanted in a way she'd never experienced before. Nathan's eyes held reverence as he looked at her, like she was something precious he'd been waiting his whole life to find. "My turn," Emma said, finding her voice, and Nathan allowed her to push him onto his back. She straddled him, taking her time unbuttoning his shirt, revealing the toned body beneath. For a CEO who spent most of his time in meetings, Nathan was impressively fit. Emma traced her fingers over the defined muscles of his chest and abdomen, feeling them tense under her touch. When she reached for his belt, Nathan's hands covered hers. "Emma," he said, his voice strained, "I need you to know something. This isn't just physical for me. It's not just about fulfilling a fantasy or scratching an itch. When I'm with you like this, I'm not your boss. I'm not the CEO of Morrison Tech. I'm just Nathan. Just a man who wants you more than he's ever wanted anyone." His eyes searched hers. "Tell me you understand that. Tell me this means something to you too." Emma leaned down, pressing her forehead to his, feeling the connection between them that went beyond physical desire. "It means everything to me," she whispered. "You mean everything to me." Then she kissed him, pouring all her feelings into it, and felt Nathan surrender beneath her, his hands coming up to tangle in her hair as he kissed her back with equal intensity. What followed was everything Emma had dreamed of, and more. Nathan was attentive and passionate, asking what she liked, adjusting his rhythm to match her responses, driving her to heights of pleasure she hadn't known were possible. When she finally came apart in his arms, crying out his name, Nathan followed moments later, his own release triggered by the sight and sound of her pleasure. They collapsed together, tangled in sheets in each other, hearts pounding in sync. For a long moment, neither of them spoke, both trying to catch their breath and process what had just happened. Then Nathan rolled onto his side, pulling Emma against his chest, his arms wrapping around her protectively. "That was," he started, then laughed. "I don't have words for what that was." "Better than my dream," Emma said, repeating what she'd said after their first kiss. "Definitely better than the dream." Nathan's fingers traced lazy patterns on her bare shoulder. "Your dream was pretty detailed. We might need multiple attempts to make sure reality consistently exceeds fantasy." Emma laughed, tilting her head to look up at him. "Is that your way of saying you want to do this again?" "I'm saying I want to do this again, and again, and again," Nathan replied seriously. "I'm saying I want this to be the first time of many, not a one-time thing we look back on with regret. I'm saying," he paused, seeming to gather his thoughts, "I'm saying I'm falling for you, Emma Clark, fast and hard and completely, and I need to know if that terrifies you or if you feel it too." Emma's heart swelled. She could play it safe, hold back, protect herself in case this didn't work out. Or she could be brave and honest and leap into the unknown with both feet. "I feel it too," she admitted. "I've felt it for months, actually. That's why the dream started. That's why I couldn't stop thinking about you. My subconscious knew what my conscious mind was too scared to admit, that I was falling in love with you long before today." Nathan's eyes widened. "Love?" Emma felt panic flutter in her chest. Had she said too much? Moved too fast? Scared him off? But then Nathan was kissing her again, tender and deep and full of emotion that matched her own. "Say it again," he murmured against her lips. "I love you," Emma whispered, feeling the truth of it resonate through her entire being. "I love you, Nathan Morrison, even though it's crazy and fast and probably completely foolish. I love you." It's not foolish, Nathan said fiercely. And I love you too. I think I have since that first interview, when you told me everything that was wrong with my marketing strategy and made me fall a little bit in love with your brilliance and confidence. He pulled back to meet her eyes. This is real, Emma. What we have, what we're building, it's real and worth fighting for. Worth dealing with the gossip and complications and whatever challenges come our way. Emma nodded, emotion thick in her throat. So what happens now? Tomorrow, when I start my new position, when we have to face everyone at the company, what do we tell them? The truth, Nathan said simply, that we're together, that it's serious, that anyone who has a problem with it can come talk to me directly. His smile turned slightly wicked. And if anyone asks for details about how it started, we can always refer them to your very thorough message that's probably been screenshot and saved by half the company. Emma groaned and buried her face in his chest. Don't remind me. That's going to haunt me forever. On the contrary, Nathan said, tilting her chin up so she had to meet his eyes. That message, as mortifying as it was, gave us both the push we needed to stop hiding and start being honest about our feelings. If you hadn't accidentally sent it, we might have spent months or years dancing around each other, never taking that leap. So in a way, that embarrassing mistake was the best thing that could have happened. Emma considered this perspective. He was right, in a strange way. The accidental message had been catastrophic, but it had also been catalytic. It had forced them both to confront feelings they'd been suppressing, to have conversations they would never have initiated otherwise, to take risks they'd been too cautious to take on their own. I suppose there's something to be said for accidental honesty, she conceded. There's everything to be said for it, Nathan replied. And speaking of honesty, I should probably tell you that I have a confession of my own. Emma felt a flutter of nervousness. What kind of confession? Nathan's expression turned sheepish. Remember that cappuccino my assistant brought you last Tuesday? The one with extra foam, exactly how you like it? Yes, Emma said slowly. I didn't have my assistant order it. I went down to the cafe myself at 6 in the morning before anyone else arrived and specifically requested they make it exactly right because I'd been paying attention to how you ordered your coffee every day for 2 months. Nathan's ears were slightly pink. I've been slightly stalking you in a completely non-creepy, I just wanted to know everything about you kind of way. Emma stared at him, then burst out laughing. You were stalking my coffee order? Among other things, Nathan admitted. I know you get to the office at 7:45 every morning. I know you listen to jazz while you work because I've walked past your desk and heard it through your headphones. I know you bite your lower lip when you're concentrating. And you do this little thing with your pen, where you spin it through your fingers when you're thinking. I know you take your lunch break at 1:15 and always eat at your desk. And you have a weakness for those chocolate croissants from the bakery across the street. He paused. I've been paying attention to you, Emma, for months, carefully, quietly, trying to know you without letting myself get too close. So you're not the only one who's been harboring feelings and fantasies. Emma felt warmth spread through her chest. That's actually really sweet. Creepy, definitely. But sweet. I prefer to think of it as attentive, Nathan said with dignity, then smiled. But yes, probably a little creepy. In my defense, I was trying to maintain professional boundaries, while simultaneously dying to know everything about you. It was a complicated balancing act. They lay together in comfortable silence for a while, just enjoying the closeness, the feeling of skin against skin without urgency or agenda. Emma traced patterns on Nathan's chest, marveling at how comfortable she felt, how right this seemed, despite how quickly everything had moved. It was like her subconscious had known all along that this was where she belonged, and it had just taken her conscious mind time to catch up. Can I ask you something? Emma said eventually. about your father and the company, and the pressure you must feel to maintain his legacy while also being different from him. Nathan tensed slightly, then forced himself to relax. You can ask me anything. Do you think he'd approve? Emma asked carefully. Of us, of how we're handling this, of the fact that you're letting yourself have a personal life instead of just sacrificing everything for the company. Nathan was quiet for a long moment, his fingers still moving through Emma's hair. I don't know, he admitted finally. My father's approval was always conditional. It was based on success, on growth metrics, and profit margins. He never asked if I was happy, never considered whether the sacrifices were worth it. Nathan's voice grew softer. But I think maybe somewhere, under all that ruthlessness and ambition, there was a man who wanted to be happy too, who wanted connection and love, but didn't know how to have it without destroying it. So maybe he'd approve, or maybe he'd be jealous that I figured out how to have both the career and the relationship he could never manage. Emma kissed his shoulder, a gentle gesture of comfort. For what it's worth, I think you're doing better than he did. You're choosing to do this right, to be ethical and honest. That takes strength. You give me strength, Nathan said, meeting her eyes. Today, when you admitted your feelings, when you refused to hide or be ashamed even after that message went out to everyone, you showed me what courage looks like. You made me want to be brave too, to stop hiding behind professional distance and just be honest about what I want. He cupped her face gently. What I want is you, Emma. Not just tonight, but tomorrow and next week and next year. I want to build something real with you, something that lasts. Emma's eyes stung with unexpected tears. I want that too. I want all of it. They made love again, slower this time, more tender. Nathan took his time, worshipping every inch of her body, whispering words of love and desire that made Emma feel cherished and beautiful and completely seen. When they finally climaxed together, it felt like a promise, a commitment to each other that went beyond words. Afterward, as they lay tangled together in Nathan's massive bed, Emma felt her phone buzzing persistently from somewhere in the pile of discarded clothes. I should probably check that, she said reluctantly. It could be important. Nathan groaned, but released her, watching appreciatively as Emma padded naked across his bedroom to retrieve her phone. She had 73 new messages. Most were from colleagues at Morrison Tech, ranging from congratulatory to confused to inappropriately curious. But there were also messages from Maya, increasingly frantic, asking if Emma was okay and where she'd disappeared to. I need to tell Maya I'm alive, Emma said, climbing back into bed with her phone. She's probably imagining worst-case scenarios. Tell her you're with me, Nathan said, pulling Emma back against his chest. Tell her you're exactly where you want to be. Emma typed out a quick message to Maya. I'm fine. Better than fine. I'm with Nathan. Everything is amazing. We'll explain tomorrow. Don't worry. She hit send, then silenced her phone and tossed it aside. There. Now we can have the rest of the night to ourselves without interruption. Nathan nuzzled her neck. What do you want to do with the rest of the night? This, Emma said simply, turning in his arms to face him. Just this. Talking. Touching. Being together. Learning each other. I've spent so long imagining what this would be like that I want to savor every moment of the reality. I can work with that, Nathan murmured, and kissed her again. They talked for hours, about everything and nothing. Nathan told her about growing up in his father's shadow, about the pressure to be perfect, about his complicated relationship with the company that bore his family name. Emma shared her own history, her middle-class upbringing, her parents who'd worked multiple jobs to send her to college, her determination to make something of herself and proved that intelligence and hard work could overcome any disadvantage. They discovered shared loves, old movies, Thai food, hiking trails they'd both explored alone, but could now explore together. They found differences, too. Nathan was a morning person. Emma decidedly was not. Nathan loved classical music. Emma preferred jazz. Nathan was organized to the point of obsession. Emma thrived in controlled chaos. "We're going to drive each other crazy," Emma predicted, laughing as Nathan described his color-coded closet and alphabetized bookshelf. "Probably," Nathan agreed cheerfully, "but it'll be worth it." He traced her features with his fingertip, memorizing her face in the dim light. "I can't believe this morning you were just my incredibly talented analyst, who I admired from afar. And now you're here, in my bed, in my life, in my heart. It feels surreal. It feels right," Emma corrected. "Like everything before this was just prologue, and now the real story is finally beginning." Nathan's smile was soft and genuine. "I like that metaphor. You're good with words. Maybe you should pursue that writing dream after all." "Maybe I will," Emma said thoughtfully. "Maybe this whole experience would make a good story. Woman accidentally reveals feelings for boss. Disaster ensues. But somehow, it all works out." "You'd have to change the names," Nathan teased. "Protect the innocent and all that." "Are we innocent?" Emma asked, raising an eyebrow. Nathan's expression turned heated. "Definitely not." He pulled her closer, his hands beginning to roam again. "Want to be less innocent together?" Emma laughed but didn't protest as Nathan's mouth found hers again. They made love a third time, and Emma marveled at how different it was each time, how they were learning each other's bodies and preferences, building a physical vocabulary that was uniquely theirs. When they finally fell asleep, tangled together with the city lights, casting patterns across the bedroom ceiling, Emma felt a contentment she'd never experienced before. This was what she'd been missing, what she'd been searching for without even knowing it. Not just physical satisfaction, but emotional connection. Not just attraction, but partnership. Not just desire, but love. Emma woke to sunlight streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows and the smell of coffee. She blinked, momentarily disoriented, then remembered where she was. Nathan's penthouse. Nathan's bed. Last night had been real, not another dream. She stretched luxuriously, feeling pleasantly sore in places that reminded her exactly how real it had been, and spotted a note on the pillow beside her. "Good morning, beautiful. I'm making breakfast. Come find me when you're ready. There's a robe in the closet and a new toothbrush in the bathroom. Take your time. We have all day." Emma smiled, touched by the thoughtfulness. She found the promised robe, soft cashmere that smelled like Nathan's cologne, and wrapped herself in it before venturing into the bathroom. It was as luxurious as everything else in the penthouse. Marble floors, a shower that could fit 6 people, a tub deep enough to swim in. Emma took advantage of the new toothbrush and washed her face, then studied her reflection. She looked different, softer somehow, happier, like something that had been tightly wound inside her for years had finally relaxed. She followed the smell of coffee and found Nathan in the kitchen, wearing only pajama pants and looking unfairly attractive as he flipped pancakes. "Morning," he said, his smile warm and intimate. "How did you sleep?" "Better than I have in months," Emma admitted, accepting the coffee he poured for her. "No dreams necessary when reality is this good." Nathan came around the counter and pulled her into his arms, kissing her thoroughly. "Good morning," he murmured against her lips. "I could get used to waking up with you." "Is that an invitation?" Emma asked, her heart skipping. "It's a statement of intent," Nathan replied. "I know it's fast. I know we probably should take things slower, establish boundaries, not rush into anything." But Emma, I'm 35 years old. I've dated plenty of women, had plenty of relationships that were fine, but never felt like this. I know what I want, and I want you. Here, in my space, in my life, as much as you're willing to give." Emma felt tears prick her eyes. "I want that too. But Nathan, we just got together yesterday. People are going to think we're crazy if we move in together after one day." "So let them think we're crazy," Nathan said simply. "Let them talk and speculate and judge. I've spent my whole life worrying about what people think, about maintaining appearances, about doing what's expected. For once, I want to do what feels right instead of what looks right. And this, us, this feels more right than anything I've ever experienced." Emma thought about her small studio apartment, about coming home alone every night, about the loneliness she'd grown so accustomed to she'd stopped noticing it. Then she thought about what Nathan was offering: partnership, companionship, love. It was fast. It was reckless. It was absolutely terrifying. It was also exactly what she wanted. "Okay," she said softly. "Let's be crazy together. Let's move too fast and scandalize everyone and do what feels right instead of what looks sensible. I'm in, Nathan. Completely. Utterly in." Nathan's smile was blinding. He kissed her again, deeper this time, and Emma felt something settle inside her, a sense of rightness and home. They ate breakfast together, planning and dreaming and laughing. Nathan called his assistant to clear his schedule for the entire week. Emma texted Maya a longer explanation, bracing herself for her friend's reaction. The response was immediate. "What? You slept with him? On the first day? Are you insane? I love it! Tell me everything!" The week that followed was a blur of happiness and adjustment. Emma moved her essentials to Nathan's penthouse, though she kept her apartment for now, both of them acknowledging that some caution was still prudent. She started her new position in the creative department, where Director Peterson welcomed her warmly and made it clear that her skills were valued regardless of her relationship with the CEO. The gossip at Morrison Tech was intense, but gradually died down as people realized that Emma and Nathan were genuinely together, genuinely serious, and genuinely uninterested in providing additional fodder for the rumor mill. Maya became Emma's confidant and ally, running interference when people got too nosy, and providing reality checks when Emma's happiness made her oblivious to office politics. "People are mostly fine with it," Maya reported over lunch one day. "There are a few bitter souls who think you got lucky or slept your way to success, but they're outnumbered by people who think it's romantic. You're like the company's real-life rom-com." "I'm not sure how I feel about being office entertainment," Emma said wryly. "Better than being office scandal," Maya pointed out. "Which, by the way, you totally were for about 48 hours after that message. The fact that you and Nathan handled it so well, were so honest about everything, it actually won people over. You showed that you weren't trying to hide anything or manipulate anyone. That counts for a lot." Emma nodded, grateful for the perspective. She was learning that transparency really was the best policy. Whenever someone asked about her relationship with Nathan, she answered honestly. Yes, they were together. Yes, it happened quickly. Yes, they were happy. No, she hadn't received any special treatment. Yes, she'd been transferred to eliminate conflicts of interest. The more straightforward she was, the less room there was for speculation and gossip. Her relationship with Nathan deepened as they navigated the challenges of building a life together. They had their first fight 3 weeks in, a stupid argument about whose turn it was to do the dishes that escalated into a discussion about expectations and communication. Emma learned that Nathan internalized stress and needed space to process, while Nathan learned that Emma needed verbal reassurance and direct conversation. They apologized, talked it through, and emerged stronger for having weathered their first real conflict. Emma started writing again, encouraged by Nathan's support. She worked on a novel in the evenings, a romance about two people who found each other in unexpected circumstances and had to navigate the complications of public scrutiny and professional boundaries. Nathan read every chapter, offering feedback and encouragement, and Emma found joy in the creative process she'd abandoned years ago. 6 months into their relationship, Nathan took Emma back to the restaurant where they'd had their first official date. Over the same corner table with the same soft lighting, he pulled out a small velvet box. "I know it's fast," he said, echoing their conversation from that first morning. "I know people will think we're rushing, but Emma, I've never been more certain of anything in my life. You are my partner, my best friend, my love. You make me better. You make me braver. You make me want to be the man who deserves you. So I'm asking, will you marry me?" Emma didn't hesitate. "Yes," she said, tears streaming down her face. "Yes, absolutely, yes." The engagement caused another ripple of gossip at Morrison Tech, but by now Emma and Nathan had learned to weather such storms together. They planned a small wedding, just close friends and family, in a garden overlooking the city. Maya was Emma's maid of honor, standing beside her as she promised to love Nathan through all of life's complications and joys. When Nathan kissed his bride, sealing their commitment before witnesses, Emma thought about the dream that had started everything, the accidental message that had changed her life. "What are you thinking about?" Nathan murmured as they danced their first dance as husband and wife. "That accidental message," Emma admitted. "The one that was supposed to ruin my career and ended up giving me everything I ever wanted." Nathan smiled, pulling her closer. "Best accident of my life," he said softly. "Though I'm still holding you to that fantasy, the one with the windows and the city lights and—" "Nathan Morrison," Emma interrupted, laughing. "We are at our wedding reception." "So?" Nathan's eyes were dancing with mischief. "We could sneak away. I happen to have reserved the honeymoon suite upstairs." Emma pretended to consider. "I suppose we could make a strategic exit, though people will definitely talk." "Let them," Nathan said, echoing words from so many months ago. "Let them talk and gossip and speculate. I have everything I need right here in my arms." Emma kissed him, not caring who was watching, not worried about propriety or appearances. She'd learned that the best things in life often came from unexpected places, from mistakes that turned into miracles, from dreams that became reality. She'd learned that love was worth the risk, worth the gossip, worth throwing caution to the wind and leaping into the unknown. "I love you," she whispered against his lips. "I love you too," Nathan replied. "My accidental confession, my deliberate choice, my forever." They did sneak away eventually, to the honeymoon suite, with its floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. And if what happened there bore a striking resemblance to Emma's original dream, well, that was just one more secret between husband and wife. Some things, they decided, were meant to remain private, shared only between two people who had found each other against all odds and refused to let go. What did you think of their story? Share your thoughts in the comments. On a scale from 0 to 10, what's your rating? Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to follow all our stories, and check out more emotional stories by clicking on the end screen. 2 years later, Emma sat at her laptop in Nathan's home office, now officially their home office, putting the finishing touches on her first novel. The story of a woman who accidentally sent an explicit message to her entire company and ended up finding true love had been cathartic to write, even with changed names and altered details. Her publisher was enthusiastic, talking about marketing potential and possible series. Emma had never imagined her embarrassing mistake would become a career launching point, but life had a way of surprising her. Nathan walked in carrying 2 mugs of coffee, setting one beside her laptop. "How's the final chapter coming?" he asked, reading over her shoulder. He'd become her first reader, offering feedback with the same attention to detail he brought to business proposals. "Almost done," Emma said, leaning back against him as he stood behind her chair. "I'm trying to capture what it felt like, that moment when everything changed, when fear turned into courage and disaster turned into destiny." "You'll get it right," Nathan said confidently. "You always do." He pressed a kiss to the top of her head. "But take a break. I have news." Emma saved her document and swiveled to face him. "Good news. Or bad news?" "Potentially complicated news," Nathan amended. "The board wants me to open a new branch in London. It would mean relocating for at least a year, maybe 2. Emma felt a flutter of anxiety, then excitement. "London? That's huge! When would we leave?" "We?" Nathan raised an eyebrow. "You're not going to fight me on this? Remind me about your career, your position at Morrison Tech, the life we've built here." "My position can be done remotely," Emma said practically. "My novel can be written anywhere. And Nathan, we're partners. Where you go, I go. That's what we promised each other." She stood, wrapping her arms around his waist. "Besides, think of the inspiration. London romance, rainy walks, cozy pubs. My second novel practically writes itself." Nathan's smile was tender. "Have I mentioned lately that I love you?" "Not in the last hour," Emma teased. "You're slipping in your husbandly duties." "I love you," Nathan said dutifully. "I love your courage, your adaptability, your willingness to leap into the unknown with me. I love that you turned the worst day of your professional life into the best thing that ever happened to both of us. I love that you're still here, still choosing me, still choosing us." "Always," Emma promised. They kissed, comfortable and familiar, yet still exciting, still filled with the passion that had sparked that very first time. When they pulled apart, Emma returned to her laptop, determined to finish the final chapter before dinner. She wrote about the couple in her story, finding their happy ending, about learning to be brave, about embracing accidents and mistakes as opportunities for growth. She wrote about the power of honesty, the importance of transparency, the beauty of building something real in a world that often valued appearance over substance. When she finally typed "the end," she felt a sense of completion, of having come full circle from that mortifying Monday morning to this moment of contentment and success. "Finished?" Nathan asked from where he'd been reading nearby. "Finished," Emma confirmed. She sent the manuscript to her editor, then closed her laptop with finality. "What do you want to do tonight? We could go out, or stay in, or—" "Actually," Nathan interrupted, a mysterious smile playing at his lips. "I have a surprise for you." He pulled out his phone and showed her a booking, confirmation. "Remember how you wrote about that couple going to Paris for their anniversary? I thought we could do that. Next month, long weekend, just the 2 of us." Emma's eyes filled with happy tears. "You remembered that detail from the manuscript?" "I remember everything you write," Nathan said simply. "Just like I remember everything you say, everything you dream, everything you want. Taking care of you, making you happy. That's not a duty, Emma. It's my greatest privilege." They spent the evening planning their Paris trip, dreaming about croissants and wine, and wandering cobblestone streets hand in hand. Later, as they prepared for bed, Emma caught sight of her reflection in the bathroom mirror and marveled again at how different she looked from that nervous woman who'd sat at her desk 2 years ago, terrified her life was over. That woman had been so afraid of risks, so worried about rules, so convinced that staying safe was more important than being happy. She was grateful to that woman for being brave when it mattered, for not running away, for choosing honesty over comfort and love over caution. Every challenge they'd faced, every judgment they'd endured, every complication they'd navigated, it had all been worth it for this. A partnership built on mutual respect, a love that grew deeper every day, a life filled with joy and possibility. "Coming to bed?" Nathan called from the bedroom. "Coming," Emma replied, smiling at her reflection one more time before turning off the light. As she slid into bed beside her husband, into the life they'd built together, she thought about all the people who'd told her the relationship would never last, who'd predicted disaster and heartbreak and professional ruin. She thought about the original message, still saved somewhere in the company's servers, a permanent record of the day everything changed. She wouldn't change any of it. Not the embarrassment, not the gossip, not the fear or the uncertainty. Because all of it had led here, to this moment, to this man, to this beautiful, complicated, perfectly imperfect life they'd created together. Sometimes the best things came from the worst mistakes. Sometimes dreams were meant to become reality. And sometimes, just sometimes, accidentally sending your deepest fantasy to the entire company was exactly the push you needed to stop dreaming and start living. What did you think of their story? Share your thoughts in the comments on a scale from 0 to 10. What's your rating? Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to follow all our stories, and check out more emotional stories by clicking on the end screen.